Yeah, I don't think I fucking hell. That yeah, I last time I couldn't press record. I don't think it changed. Then I need to set up the meetings, like and all that. That might have been easier, but I just
Yeah,
wanted
no.
to
Who wants
get
easy
going.
when you can have fun, right?
What?
So why make it easy when you can just have fun with it? So
Oh, fair,
jump
fair,
into
fair.
it now.
Now I understand. Now I understand. I was like, what? Well, easy fun. How does those two align? Welcome back to the Infinite Perspectives. Thank you very much for listening to the first couple of episodes. Today we're gonna talk a bunch about how to actually effectively communicate with your team. A bit of a mouthful. So communication for a team to work effectively and more crucially, I would say like working in the long run is number one. And how you communicate with them. Because I think most people have had an experience in some sort of way with that boss or a person that was above them that was just a bit of an asshole. Haven't you, Linda?
I can't disagree. I don't think anyone can disagree that we've all been in a space where the communication wasn't ideal and desired. And so, what do you do when that happens? Honestly, communication is everything. Learning how to do it effectively is an art form in itself. And it's the one thing that a lot of people shy away from. When communication gets tough, um, people they like to think that it's tough. And I say, no, it's not tough if you know how to do it correctly, how to do it effectively. It can work for you. So even in those really tough situations where it's not going the way you want, you can get in there and really empathize and acknowledge the other person, what they're feeling as far as their emotional state. And when you can do that and find a common area where you both agree, then the calming or grounding can happen in two people and you can really have that effective communication. But we fear it. We fear about how we're going to come across. We fear about, how the other person might call us out, put us in our place. All these different things are running through our head. And I tell people, it's just another human being. We're all human beings. We're complex in our thinking, our thoughts. We all have worries and fears. We project things out on other people sometimes. And honestly, if we can just find that common place to just have a conversation, that's where it really all begins. And as crazy as it sounds, you know where the number one place to start is? Do you know?
Hmm. I'm curious as to what you,
Okay.
in your perspective, it is.
Okay. So, in my
I won't say.
perspective, the number one thing that you have to know is a person's uh, so how they prefer to communicate. Some people want to be in person. Some people would rather do it through text or an email. And that preference can change with the type of communication. Sometimes you need to get something out there that's an urgent matter. And so you just got to do it quickly and fast. Other times you're working on a project where you got to know all the different details. And then other times you're actually communicating a plan of action and you need to let people know why they should get on board. So depending on what type of communication preference they have and what type of information you're delivering, it can change. But knowing that is a huge thing. And I learned that in the pandemic, actually. I keep going back to the pandemic. All of the communication breakdowns that happen have always happened over the years throughout history. But the pandemic was a crisis mode that brought it to the surface. And so things that maybe weren't as to the surface, they definitely got to be there. And so you'd find that people, were having a hard time communicating because they no longer were in a space where they knew what was going to happen. You're online sometimes for many of things that you're used to doing in person, delivery of how you would provide services and and deliverables for even products would change. And so, when things change, people get uncomfortable. When people get uncomfortable, then they start panicking. And so you got to bring people back into the basics. And I just got so excited about the work of how to set, communicate, and maintain boundaries, because that starts with the whole preface of knowing a person's values, knowing a person's preferences. And you do that, when you first meet somebody, when you first meet someone, whether it's personal or professional, it doesn't matter. You're going to find out their preferences. And so I always start there now. I always ask, how do you like to communicate? How often do you like to communicate? And, another thing that comes to surface when you really want to effective communicating with somebody is, what do you do, or how do you want me to respond if I need to give some feedback, or I need to change the course and where we're headed? Things are going off the rails. How do you best want me to approach that with you? That one there has been a game changer.
I do it in a similar way. Like for me, it's more, it's not. Yeah, it is similar to some extent. One example can be, something is urgent. I send like a personal text from work, and normally I would like, in that example would be a person I also have a relationship to outside work. Then I'll be like afterwards when I meet them the next time or something. If you don't want any messages, or you don't want me to like, because you don't want to start disturbing people in their off time. Some people are very, very like, no, I don't text me, don't do that, don't do that. And I think as long as you're just a regular employee, then it's completely okay. No worries in that. Like, if you just want to be here from 8 to 4, do an amazing job, that's all right with me. Like, we need those kind of people as well.
That's a
So
that's really great that you mentioned that outside of work, setting that boundary. Some people, like you said, that we might know them in a social context, and so we can talk to them outside of work. Whereas other people, you're right, they're there between a certain time and they don't want to hear from you outside of work because that is their time. So that's a great
yeah.
example that I think people can get on and relate to.
So yeah, that's also a difference. And then like I always know, like, no matter the relationship I have with a person, like how well I know them personally, as when I start texting them about work related stuff, and it's, if you're working in a normal 9 to 5, 8 to 4 setting, I think it's very important to give them the option of being like, if you don't want it, just tell me. Like, don't, just say it. Because I never had a person say no. I don't do that. Don't text me when so I've never had a person say that. But you can see people, even though they don't say it, you can see people appreciate it when you say it, because that means you think about them. You care about them to some extent. Because if you didn't, you would just do it, not ask. Like, let's be frank, you would. So I think that's like the stuff I ask most about. Other than that, I prefer to some extent like trial and error. You know, if I do this, and this comes back to, this is something we definitely spoke about on the Two Perspectives, old podcast. Me being very curious of how the human brain works. So I think that's why I'm more entitled to do a trial and error method, because like, if I text Linda this message, how effective is that? Or if I call her and actually chat a little bit, like joke about with her, like for 5-10 minutes, and give her this message, does that give me a better result? Doesn't she like it? Is it like, because she completely professional, completely business, nothing else, straight to the point, no bullshit? Those people exist as well. They don't want to fuck around with you 10 minutes on the phone. They think it's a waste of time, but they don't want to say no because you're their boss. So those kinds of things, like how does different people react to the message in a different way, or how does different people react to the same message in the same way, like the different contrasts. So not saying one way is right or wrong. I think you need to be very aware. At least you need to be aware. That's the like number one thing. Either ask, that's one way of becoming aware, or being very analytical when you ask them questions and how you communicate and see how they react to the different things. So you're able to find what works best for the different scenarios.
I
So
love
that's
what you brought
how I
there.
do it.
I love what you brought there. You also got me curious now on how you have analyzed me and how you see how I respond. And so now I'm curious. I want to get the feedback on how you found the most effective communication with me in working with me, because I know that we do ask each other and we do, like you said, test, different things to see what works and what doesn't. And I think that that's really important distinction to make, that communication is not a one size fits all, and it's definitely not a one size fits all for a team of people, because each person's different. It's also not a one size fits all for the situation, because different situations call for different types of communication. And I even like how you put it on the situation where, one time a person might respond this way, and then you'll do another communication and they'll respond totally different on another. And so then you're left like, okay, what's just happened here? And being aware of the difference, and then being able to feel comfortable enough asking some questions of curiosity to confirm or deny what you observed, to see if you're on point and if you need to make a change. Having that awareness is definitely important, because you can't communicate in a way where you don't pay attention to what's going on. So back to my question of curiosity, what did you find was the most effective communication with me? Because I got to know how that's going out in the world, just to kind of get an
Depends.
assessment. Okay, it
It
depends.
depends.
Okay. All right. So give us an
Uh,
example of a time that it
if
went really
if we
well.
need to get shit done,
Okay.
I personally think it's voice messages, because text is also very good, but we both do like to chat and talk. So that's why I'm not saying a call, because that a 10-minute conversation can very easily turn into an hour. So I think voice messages is a very nice medium. I think that's where we get the most value out from the time we spend communicating. Because what we communicate about is like either a problem has occurred in our life, or it's something about creating content, business, something like this, like actually like brainstorming ideas. So in those two scenarios, I think that's the right medium.
I would agree with you, because when you send text, it's great if you're like wanting to share details, some details or a path that you need to go back and refer to. But
Mhm.
if you're brainstorming, or you're trying to get a feel for where someone feels about an issue or something that's going on, I like to have that story to frame up what it is that I need to be focused on. And for me, I'm very much an auditory type person. So if you explain what you want, how you want it, some of the things I need to consider about how someone might take something on the other side of things, I think that's a little easier to do in, like you said, a voice message, as opposed to writing a flat text. Sometimes it get lost in translation, and you don't really get the feel behind what it is that you're going to do. So if you're
Mm.
wanting brainstorming, or you're wanting to get somebody's feeling or thoughts, I believe that you're going to get more out of the voice. Now, again, if we're working on a project and getting some deadlines done, or wanting some certain specifications, having them all documented is certainly a great thing to do when you're coming up with a process or a procedure or a course of action that has dependencies. Do this first, and when this happens, then do this. That type of logical progression I do like written down, because chances are I'm not going to remember all of the specific steps of what we're taking. And so that would be like the perfect time to jot that down and put it into a text or a written format.
Yeah, it's only really when it's like a whole project, like piecing the last pieces together. I think a call in our case can be very valuable. Because that's something where it's like you can share your screen where you also get some visual, kind of a little bit like text, so you can write it down like in a sheet like we've done. So in that case, the call can be very valuable. But I think if we did calls instead of voice messages, I think we'd end up wasting a lot of time.
We could be having that friendly banter going on because we
W-
always have a
uh,
pre
Don't tell
conversation.
don't tell me we haven't turned up to record an episode of a podcast. An hour later, I don't have time anymore. Nothing's been recorded. We just chat.
Yeah,
That
but
have
we do.
happened,
Oh,
and
that
it's
has
happened
happened.
multiple times, not just
Oh,
once.
yes, yes. So being
So,
disciplined, yes, being
so that
disciplined is important.
that's where I realized, okay, if we need to get shit done, voice messages are better, and it helps now that Facebook made them longer than a minute. It was a bit of struggle in the start.
Oh yeah, it was because
The
me
minute I had to get in,
concise messaging and not getting cut off. You're like, Linda, just get to the point. Don't take 100 years to fluff it up. Just give me the basics and what I got to
yes,
do and cut the rest. Um,
that there were some benefits to the minute, but it was a bit short. I like
yes.
to have that bit like a bit availability to go a bit longer. Like because some things are hard to explain. Like God damn it, there was one thing I was trying to explain to Mike and Arena, I think, and I wanted to use videos sent over Facebook to do it, and they're like 30 seconds long. Yeah, it was fucking difficult.
Oh
Even I
yes,
had to
get it
split
in,
it
get
up.
it done.
I had to split it up in like four
Yeah.
sections, and I was still difficult to get those like the message across, like one bit of the message across in 30 seconds. But the challenge in that, I kind of want to tie into today's topic because I think, or I know, because just like anything else in the world, challenging yourself to do something is going to improve your communication, just like anything else. Like, for example, I would say doing a bunch of videos has definitely improved my communication, also in the way it was challenging, but also the good thing with learning through video or podcast or something you record at least is you get to see and listen back to the result. So you can be like, I should do this different. I'm a bit monotone. I'm a bit boring, ain't I? I need to do something a bit different. At least that's what goes through my head when I listen back to and edit this stuff or just rewatch it, like to see what the result was. I think that's very good. I don't watch every video I do. I don't watch like my short videos, but longer ones, I think it's very important to at least if you want to be a very good and well spoken person to actually listen back to how you speak and analyze it, or at least have another person analyze it. Otherwise, I don't.
Absolutely. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I
Go
found
ahead.
that what you're saying is true. Um, in this day and age, a lot of times we are going to send like a video proposal. Let's say you're sending a video proposal to a company you want or a person you want to work with, and you put together this really nice, slide deck. You put in all of the different pieces of information, and then you put a video to it. You know how you can tell how good your communication is you've got that written form and then you've added the speaking to it, right? And if that person will come back and ask you some critical questions about what it is that you shared, and they ask them in a way they want to learn more, that means that you've kept it to a point where you've drawn their interest. You've given them enough information, but not too much so that they want to ask you for more details. And that means that you covered what you wanted to do when you send a proposal. When you send a proposal, you want to get an answer or a response that they want to do business or work with you, right? And so if a person comes back and asks some follow-up questions based on what you shared, you know that you've communicated in the way that the other person was interested. They came back and then you met your goal, which is to go into that deeper conversation where you go down into even more level of detail. So it's all communications about knowing what your audience wants to to take in, and knowing what you want as a result and bridging the two together in a way that you continue the conversation. That to me is how I tell when my communication is effective. Now, if I put
For
something
sure.
out, if I put something out there and a person says, I don't really know why you sent this to me. I don't really understand what it is that you want to do. I don't really understand what my role is. I don't understand what you're expecting. You start to get a bunch of questions like that, then that's an indicator that you got to go back to the drawing board and be more thoughtful about the objectives that you're wanting to achieve and articulating it in a way that people can get on board and understand. And I tell people all the time, communication's an art form. Sometimes you're going to do it and you're going to do a really great job and get it right, and people are going to respond in kind. Other times you might have to go back and reevaluate how you could have done it differently. And I guess the reason why I'm bringing this up is the reason why people don't work on becoming more effective communicators is because it takes work, and it takes admitting that you have more work to do and that you might need to phone a friend or get someone's perspective on how you could improve. You know, you got to be open to getting that feedback in order to be better at what you do, right?
That's a very crucial thing. And one thing I want to mention, because we've both talked about communication depends on the person that you're speaking to. I want to leave audience before we end this episode off with what is some of the things that is effective in every scenario? Like, what are some of the baseline things? For me, it's definitely tonality. Don't speak in the same tone all of the time. Change it up a bit. Maybe sometime have some fun speaking like completely different. I don't know. Play a bit with voices. They can be a bunch of different things, but I bet you my tone that just went very, very sharp, that kind of caught you listening a bit off guard. We're like, what? I got your attention. So that's one thing to it. Another thing is also like the pacing. You don't want to keep the same pace. You want to slow down, speed up a little bit, depending also on the words you choose. Because both of those things, if you don't do those, you're going to turn into one of those people that is just completely monotone, that was scared to presentate in school, stuff like that. I always loved it. So I don't understand the feeling, but I know the people. And I think another thing is tonality, speed, and also be aware of your body language. Like that's a very big part of it. Like that's even more important than the words. Like it's the word you use, then it's your tonality, and then it's your body language in reverse order. So your body language is the most important thing. That's what most people pick up upon. Uh, it can be don't like stand like this when you're like listening. You're supposed to be listening to a person and you want to seem interested. If you want to seem interested, then not saying if you're standing like this, you might be interested. You might just be an introvert, so you stand like that with your arms across. But to some people, that's gonna communicate you are not interested. You're not really caring. You because you're like you're already closed off. You're not listening. Um, and no person takes with you stand with your hands behind your back or just to be with like I would say your fingers in your pockets. I think that's more acceptable than the whole hand in the pocket as well. And also like it's not gonna showcase you as close off. Um, so that's like the top three things I think when it comes to communication, like how to communicate well. And as we mentioned, video recording is a great way to practice it. I don't know if is there something you want to add on to my list, Linda?
Of course there is.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I
So
couldn't resist. Couldn't
in
resist.
addition to the great things that you shared right there, I wanted to share that effective communication happens when there's respect and there's a more listening going on than there is talking.
It's
And
coming
so,
from you.
yes, it is. It is coming from me. I acknowledge and admit that that is an area of interest to me, and learning to listen fully to the messages that are coming, listening to the tonality, the body language, the action that you may want. And so that's really important, because if you're just waiting to put in your 2 cents or the next thing, it just shows that you are not listening like you could to understand and come into a common ground on whatever it is that you're speaking to, and to really, connect with another individual, and to problem solve. Or maybe we're not problem solving, maybe we're just listening to get somebody's thoughts on something. You got to know when to hold back and when to jump in, the right timing.
Mm.
And so that's something that I'm working on. I know that I get passionate and excited, and I just want to jump in, and either I want to solve the issue or problem, or I just have a great idea because you sparked something in me, and so I just want to put that out there and share it. But honestly, in good communication, that can take away if you get too too passionate about jumping in and not giving the person the space to be able to finish their thoughts, to really express an idea from beginning to end. I mean, think about if you were presenting something, and you had all these people wanting to jump in and take a segue on something you said. Well, then you wouldn't really get to fully finish your thought and delivery. And maybe you had something really important that you're getting to, and maybe it took you a little longer to get there. But if we don't allow you to get there, then we're not going to hear that thing that you're bringing to fruition, because we were too eager to jump in. And so that's really important in communication, to avoid doing that.
That actually inspired me to another point. Remember to breathe, motherfucker. Just take a breath, pause. And this is not like directed towards Linda, but like not pausing between your words, your sentences, all these things. It doesn't communicate, what you're talking about. It communicates you're uncomfortable, because
Mhm.
taking that pause, being comfortable with that 1 second, 2 seconds of silence, also so people can take in your message, shows confidence. Because you're not, you can like, you're on the scene, you're in the front of people, all these things. There can be a bit of silence, you don't mind. Like,
Silence is good.
yes, silence
Silence
is,
is good.
is and that's the last thing I want to put on. I just you ranting on a bit kind of sparked that idea into me, as you also mentioned. Like sometimes ideas just come to us. I would absolutely love to hear if somebody from the audience has something they want to add on to the list, or maybe what is their favorite on the list, because we also, as we mentioned, all different, and some people are better at other things, and some people are better at something opposite to that. So I'd also love to hear that down below. I don't know if you have some more you want to add on, Linda.
No, I think you've
You
succinctly
don't.
wrapped it
You
up.
don't.
No, I
You
don't have
don't.
any
You
more. I'm going to
don't.
be different here.
You you need to be very quick, because in about 1 minute you're not gonna be able to add anything more.
That's right, I won't.
So with that being said, like, subscribe, make sure to subscribe to keep updated on all the good content that is coming out. Yeah, I don't have anything else.